Alrighty, hi everyone, welcome to your next CBT classroom, and today we are dealing with rules and assumptions. It's a big one. Rules and assumptions are one of the really key areas of cognitive behavioural therapy, and today we're going to help you find out what your rules and assumptions are in your life. Now, you might remember from the last class we were looking at rules or rigid beliefs. Now, when we have these rigid demands, I have to, I must, I need to. These rigid demands, a lot of the times we can get them from childhood. And you might remember some of the beliefs we covered. For example, I must not make any mistakes. Now that could be a belief that maybe we learned in childhood. Maybe we were in a family where it wasn't allowed to make mistakes. We weren't allowed to do that. So maybe we got the rule, I must not make mistakes, as a way of being alive. Maybe we had a bad relationship, maybe we got hurt, and maybe we decided what the rule was, I must not be vulnerable, for example. So rules are essentially these rules that we live by. We don't always see them, but they're kind of always there. They're in the subtext. They're just sitting beneath conscious awareness. And that's the way the brain works. Ultimately, the brain wants to avoid pain. It wants to avoid suffering. It wants to protect itself. So that's what it does. And when bad things happen, difficult situations, we create these rules to protect ourselves. But remember what I said, the map is not the territory. And in the previous session, I covered that idea that we have the territory, we have objective reality, and then we have our views and opinions about it. Now, a lot of the time, for example, maybe something bad did happen in childhood. Maybe I wasn't allowed to make mistakes back then, but obviously that was then. And yet we still carry these rules around with us for the rest of our life. I'm an adult now, and I'm still telling myself I must not make any mistakes. The game has changed. It's 2023. Imagine when you were a kid, you wanted to tell the truth, and you basically thought you'd be honest in a situation, and you were honest, and you got in trouble for being honest. And maybe you said, it's not safe to be honest, or I'm never going to be truthful with anyone ever again, because it's not safe. So you can see how we internalize these rules, and it would be good for you guys to begin, if you haven't already, looking at your life and looking at those rules. And you'll find a lot of the time they pop up in difficult, stressful situations that you're dealing with. Wherever you're dealing with emotional distress, wherever you've got emotional worry or difficult situations, you can guarantee that you will have a rule, or a rule will have been triggered. Today, we're not just talking about rules, but we're talking about rules and assumptions. So consider that rule, the assumption, is like the other side of the coin. For example, we might say, I must not make any mistakes. That's the rule. And if I do, I'm going to get in trouble. That's the assumption. I must not be vulnerable with other people. That's a rule. If I am, I'm going to be judged. That would be an assumption. So can you see how it works, okay? We've got the rule, which is the demand, that rigid belief. And then the assumption is, if what you're afraid of happens, then it's going to mean this. You got the rule and you got the assumption. Now, these rules and assumptions basically run us. We're like robots. We're like computers. We don't realize it, but our behavior is generally designed to avoid what we are afraid of. And we do everything, we justify, explain, rationalize, whatever we can to avoid the discomfort and the pain. So, what I'd like you to do today is to begin looking at what your rules and assumptions are. So generally we split rules and assumptions into three different areas: achievement, acceptance, and control. Three different areas. So the first area is achievement. We might be telling ourselves, if I can't do something perfectly, it's not worth doing at all. Now, I don't have that one, but a lot of people do. And you can see that's based around achievement. We might say to ourselves, if somebody is doing better than me, then that means that they are a better person. Again, you can see that is an assumption based around achievement. Then we have rules and assumptions based around acceptance. If I upset people, then they will reject me, for example. They might not accept me. If someone dislikes me, it means that there's something wrong with me. Again, lack of acceptance. So you can see how we structure these rules and assumptions. And you'll be able to catch yourself. It's always what you're afraid of happening. If that were to happen, what is it you're avoiding? What is it you don't want to happen? And if it were to happen, what would happen then? And the other area we look at regarding rules and assumptions is to do with control. For example, we might say, if I ask for help, it will prove that I'm weak, that I can't control my emotions. For example, these three areas are areas that you can look at, but generally speaking, just look at what you're afraid of, what you're afraid of happening, and if it were to happen, what you would make that mean. It's really simple. Now, the good news about CBT and the good news about this work that we're doing together is that your rules and assumptions aren't true. You made them up. I know, it's crazy. We spend our whole life believing this stuff, and then we realize that it's not totally true. It's wild. Human beings, we're an odd bunch, right? But the good news is that none of these rules and assumptions are totally true. The important thing is that we bring them to the surface, that we allow ourselves to find them, for us to work out what those rules and assumptions are. Once we can find them, then we can begin to do what we do in CBT, which is to use tools and techniques, questions specifically, to help prove that they're not totally wrong. So the good news is that with CBT, we can use questions and tools to help prove to ourselves that those rules and assumptions are not totally true. They're lies. We believe them, but they're lies. So for the moment, just begin to dig and find out what your rules and assumptions are. You know that they're going to be based on difficult situations. You know they're going to be based in situations where you're struggling or you've got strong emotions, areas that you might be triggered by, and then begin digging for what your rigid rule is, your demand, what should or shouldn't happen, what must or must not happen, what are you avoiding, what needs to happen. And then if it doesn't, if things don't go how you want or how you feel they should do, what are you going to make it mean? Okay, that's it. So again, if you got any questions, just put them underneath the video. Other than that, that's all for now, guys. Looking forward to the next session, and I'll catch you later.